In today's video, we're going to be working on pie charts. This video is part of a series where I create all of the different types of charts in Excel. So if you want to watch other videos in this series, link to that is going to be in the description box below. So as we're going to work on the pie charts, we're just going to create different types of pie charts. So we have the classic pie charts. This is the 3D pie charts. Then we have the pie of pie charts. This is bar of pie charts. Then we also have the donut charts, and we'll just format it differently so that each one will look different, and then we'll just kind of play around with different settings. Anyway, that's just a brief introduction, so let's get right to it. So we have our data set open. When you download your data set from the GitHub repository, it's going to be in CSV format. You can go ahead and save a copy as an Excel workbook format. What I'm going to do is create a table from our data. So go over to Insert, Table, and Excel is going to highlight our entire data. If you want to select only a specific section, you can modify that, but I'm just going to leave it like that. And I'm going to leave my table has headers selected, and I'll just click on OK, and we have our table. The name of our table is table 1. So when I'm creating my pivot table, I'm going to reference table 1. You can actually create pivot tables by just referencing the entire table. You'll select the entire cells, but we don't need to do that. I'm just going to reference the table. So I'm going to create a new sheet, select any cell, go over to Insert, and I'm going to insert a pivot table. And since I know my table is table 1, I'm just going to reference it by name, and we have a pivot table that is using that data. Let's create our first pie chart. I'm going to grab products, product category, add that to row, and then we're going to grab revenue, and we're going to add that to values. I'm going to select this pivot table. You don't even need to select it. Just go over to Insert, Recommended Charts, and we are going to select the pie chart, and we're going to create the classic pie chart. And there we go. This is our pie chart. We're not going to modify this one. Maybe when we move on to the next one, we can do some modifications, but this is what a basic pie chart looks like. What I will do actually is right click here, hide all field buttons on charts, and I'm going to change the title, double click, and this is going to be revenue distribution by product category. There we go. Let's take a moment to look at the default options that is in Excel. So you can either come over to this tab, the design tab, or you can also select this, and then you have the same options here. But let's do it here so we can see all of the options. So we have, this is style 1, the first one. Then we have this option, there's this one. So this one has the percentages on the pie chart itself, and we have this and this. So if you happen to see any style in the default options that you like, you can use it. But for now, we're just going to move on to the next one. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to make any changes to this current one. So what we'll do is, as we move on to create the other type of pie charts, when we get to the donut chart, we're going to create different versions, and we'll just touch on some formatting you can do on each chart. What I'm going to do is rename this sheets. I'll just copy the title, add it here. I'll just shorten revenue distribution by category. So you shorten it because there's too much. So revenue distribution by product category, by just not product category, we'll just use category. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we'll create a new sheet. You can create all of them in all your charts in the same sheet. I like to create them in different sheets to just keep things neat. I'm going to select any cell, go over to Insert, and we are going to insert a pivot table, and I'm going to reference table 1. Click on OK, and we have our pivot table. Next up is our data. We're going to put our fields, sorry. I'm going to go over here, grab region, bring it to rows, and then we are going to grab revenue again, add revenue to value. You can change this if you want, but typically pie charts are looking at distribution, so the format doesn't matter. So I just changed these numbers to currency, dollars specifically. So I changed it to dollars. Now let's go over to insert, recommended charts, pie, and we are going to insert another classic pie chart, and we're just going to click on OK. I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to hide field buttons on charts, and I'm going to, well, let me change the title of this chart first. This is revenue distribution by region. I'm going to copy this so I can also rename this sheet with that. And yeah, so this time let's modify this chart and make some changes. I'm going to right click on this chart area, and I'm going to select format chart area. So for the fill, you can change the fill to whatever you want. You can make it a solid fill. So by default, it just choose black. Whatever color I used last, it just use. We have the option for a gradient fill, if that's what you want, and you can change the style or direction of the gradient. Say we change to something like this. You can change the direction. It's currently radial. We can do linear, and then you have that shape, or you can do path, something like this, or you could do rectangular, where you have this option. So whatever one you want. So in this case, rectangular, we cannot choose direction and things like that. So you can just play around with it and see what works for you. We have the picture and texture fill. So by default, you can also see that these items, each slice has its own border. So figuring out what Excel will do by default will allow you modify it, so I don't miss some details when you're editing elements in whatever chart you're working on. Then we also have the pattern fill. So I keep whenever I select picture or texture fill, we never look at any other pictures or textures. So let's look at something different. Maybe we could select, I don't know, this. Let's select another texture, maybe this one. That's interesting. Pick different textures, and we also have this option for patterns. Patterns is something that sometimes I do work with, so this is very distracting. Maybe you could reduce the opacity and things like that. Choose whatever pattern you want if that's what you want to use. But I'm going to switch it back to automatic. That's what by automatic, it will typically fill the background with white, except you've changed some settings. Let's go over to the border option, and border option, you already have an outline or a border for your chart, and what we can do is add rounded corners, and we can change the color because it's currently this really light gray color. I'm going to change it to white so it to be the same shade with our chart area. Now it kind of looks flat, so if you're working with you can only tell by this side that we have a curved chart area. So the same settings also applies to line. So if we use gradient line, you're going to have this option, and you also have solid line is essentially, if you change the color of the line, it's essentially the same thing, so no real difference there. But I'm just going to go back to automatic, which we've already used, and it brought back the color I changed. I'll just change it back to white. Under effects, you can add the shadow glue, give it soft edges. So let's add the shadow. Let's say we use something like this. It's offset to the top right. I want to use this one, but let's look at other effects also. You can modify the shadows, maybe it feels like it's too dark, or you don't like the angles or things like that. You can modify that. Let's go over to glow. Let's select one of the presets. We can select this, and you have this glow option if that's what you want. I'm going to, so there are different options, and even though these presets all have this color, it doesn't mean that those are the only colors available. You can select the colors and then maybe pick this one, so you can just change the color. It's essentially how large the glue is. So there are 4 options. One is very subtle and one is very large, so it's just about picking which one works for you. Soft edges, I'm going to select presets, and let me pick this one. And our background, you can still see the outline because we have a border, but soft edges will give your chart a soft edge, so it feels like as if it's blending into the background. So depending on how intense, what option you choose, it's going to give your, let me see, and yes, you can increase the size. So this is, let me increase it, and as we increase it, you're going to see that our background essentially disappears. So when you're designing dashboards, understanding all of this will help you make unique or interesting dashboards with interesting designs. For 3D format, we're just going to leave it for now. We're going to play around with the 3D option later on in the chart, specifically on the actual pie itself. So I'm just going to leave the shadow as it is. For this, we're just going to leave it size and properties. You can always change the size, property, scale, width, and other kind of thing. Properties is, we can make other changes if you want. Let's now change our focus to the actual pie. So let's go to fill. Let's start with this one. So if you wanted to change, let's say, the color of this one, now you see that this three dots is highlighted on this one. That means I'm selecting only this one. I'm going to click out. If you see it on all of them, that means you are selecting the entire thing. So if you want to remove the border all at once, or you want to add a shadow to the pie itself, this is how you do it. But I want to work on them one by one. Let's say I want to start with this one. Under fill, it's currently set to automatic. The same solid texture, picture, all of them is the same thing we had with the chart area, so I'm not going to go through all of that. But what I'll do, just to demonstrate, we are going to change the fill. So for the fill, let me say I'm going to pick this blue color. Then for this one, maybe I'll change it to something. I really like this one, this color. Let me select this one, and I'm going to change it to maybe this. And then finally this green one, we can change it to, let's use this red, this dark red color. So this is how you can change the color of the individual slices if that's what you want to do. Now I'm selecting the entire thing, and now I can add effects or some designs to it. I'm going to come over to shadow, and if you want to remove the border, like I said, by default it has a border. You can come over to border and select no line, and when you do that, you see that there's no gap in between. The reason why there was gaps in between is that all the slices had borders, so that now created an effect where there was lines in between them. But I'm going to put it back. I actually want the lines. You can increase the width of the line. A lot of times when you're dealing with specific elements, just figure out whether Excel will allow you to make modifications, whether it will allow you, let's do pictures. If it's a line, will it allow you increase or decrease the width, things like that. Can use different types of lines. For example, the line type, maybe say I select this one, and now you can see Excel has changed the type of line. I do not like that at all, so I'm going to leave it as a solid, just one solid line. Let's go over to the effect options. We have this option for shadows, and once again the effects we use on the chart is the same. I'm not going to go through all of them. We're just going to pick an effect and just apply it. For shadow, I want to use this one again, and I'm going to select it. Now the pie itself has a shadow, so the chart has a shadow, the pie itself has a the chart area has a shadow, and the pie itself with all its slices has the shadow. I can undo that, select one of the slices, and then I'm going to, use offset, what's the name of it, this one, offset top right, and then we have a shadow on one of the slices. Let me say I select one, and I can add a glow. Let me say this one. Oops, okay, I didn't select just the slice. I'm going to apply a glow, and now we have this glow effect on just one slice. Well, can we do something different with this one? Let's say we want to add a different effect, and I select soft edges and I pick this, and the answer is yes, and you have this really interesting looking chart. I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes, but you're not really going to do that. I'm just going to select the entire slices, go back to shadow, and I'm going to use this offset center shadow. Let's come over here, and I'm going to add data labels. So this time I'm going to click on that. This time we don't need these items. Well, in order not to do that, we're going to select this, and we are going to select and go to more options, and then we are going to come over here, and we're going to select label option. So we want to see what information we're going to have there. So we can select percentage, and we can also use no, not series name, category name. So now we have the category, the value, and then we also have the percentage. And since we have that, we can delete this. I'm just going to select the values here, these callout values, and I'm going to go over to home, and I'm going to change the text color to white. And we have this issue with its placement, so I'll just come over here, labels, and then we can do this. So whenever you whichever one you select, so we have center, inside end, outside end, best fit. So the best fit was what it was probably using, and it was getting kind of wonky, so we can use this one, inside end. And you can actually rotate this chart if you want to. So let me say I select this, and then I start increasing the angle. So depending on how I move this around, I'm just going to move this. You can change the rotation of your chart. Let me bring it back like this. I'm just going to return it back to 0 degrees. So depending on what you want, you can rotate the angle of your charts appropriately. For pie explosion, in the next one we're going to do that. Anyway, that is it for this particular pie chart. We can now move on to another pie chart design. Let's create a new sheet. I'm going to select any cell, insert pivot table, and we are going to reference table 1. I'm going to grab sales channel, and next I'm going to grab profits, add that to values, and I'm not going to change the data type or the format. I can just leave it as it is. I'm going to go to home, and then insert recommended charts, pie, and we are going to use a 3D pie chart, and I'm just going to click on OK. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to hide all field labels and field buttons on charts. I'm going to also change the title of my charts. This is going to be Profit by Sales Channel, and I'm going to copy this and then also rename my sheets while I'm at it. All right, next up, let's make some modifications to it all. Well, before that, let's look at the default designs that are available in Excel. So either you can select this, and you can just look at some options. So we have this, we have these options, so on and so forth. And I'm going to just select, we're just going to scroll down. There really isn't much. Well, let's make some changes, or let's make some design changes to our chart, so that instead of using one of them, if you want to make modifications to it, you know how to do it. So I'm going to select the actual slices themselves. So when I select, we have these options to select the slices. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to format data, and let's say we want to change the fill. You can. So let's go over to the fill, select fill options. Is currently on automatic. We can change the different colors. Let's say this one, and this option that is green, let's pick a different color. Let's say we'll use this pink color, and for this one we can use, let's see, this green color. And these slices have borders also, so I'm going to select no line. Same with this one, I'm going to select no line, and finally with this one, no line on the border. Now I'm going to select the slice, and I'm going to go over to format, shape effect, and then in the bevel we're going to have these options where you can create this. So they really don't do much, so that's how we can create it with that how will I say that effect we saw where it has this glossy edge. So they really don't do much, so I can just choose this option, divot. So I'm just going to select it and then apply that to this, and then we're also going to apply it. Oh, I've not selected the green one, shape effect. I'm going to select divot also. So this is what we have. Let's say we want to, let's use data labels. I'm going to click on this, and this is what our data labels look like on this. Let's go over to more options, and I'm going to come over here, label options, and you know what, let's, instead of that one, let's use this one, data callout, and this is what it looks, this is what it should look like. So I'm going to select data callout, and we're going to have distributor, retail, and then the percentage. You can modify it if you want. I'm going to select this one. There's no need for this one. I'm going to delete it, and I can select it, and we can have, go over to label options, and then we can select value, we can add the value, we can add the series name, all it's just total and things like that. So I'm just going to leave it as distributor. I'll just leave it as it is. Let's go over to fill. Yes, you can add a fill. Let's say we want to use something like it's currently set to solid fill. Let me use something like this yellow. That's let me see if I can use that. Actually is quite atrocious, not gonna lie. So I'm just going to, maybe somebody likes it, but you know, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to change the border solid line. Let's use something really dark, let's say like this, and that is how you can modify the data callouts. So we can also change the rotation of this 3D. So we can move this, and we can change the rotation of our slice like this. So I'm just going to keep moving it, and our slice will keep moving. So it's currently, mine is currently set to 50 degrees. If you want to use it, it doesn't really matter. I want to change the color of this font. So home, go over to font, and I'm going to select black for the font color. All right, let's get back to our pie, and then for pie explosion, I'm going to select this, and now we'll have this separate pie slices where you can see in between this. Let me increase it so we can see all 3 individual slices as it is. So this is what we have. We can even change the background. I don't think we've changed the background for any of these designs. Let's say we wanted a darker color. So I'm going to go over to fill, select the chart area, go over to fill. I'm going to first select no line for the fill, and then for solid fill, I'm going to use this dark color. Maybe I could even go darker. Now we're having this particular color isn't that visible. I could pick a lighter shade of this color. No, I don't like that. I'm going to select this, and now we have a lighter shade. I can select this titles, this title, chart title, and I'll change the color of the text to white, and we are going to have this. So yeah, this is a 3D pie chart with, so I just made some modifications. If you want to change some details about it and move things around, you know, try it. Let me see if we can add, sometimes you can add some effects, sometimes you can't. So I want to see if we can add a glow, since we're using a dark color, and with a lot of time with 3D effects you can add a glow. But yeah, anyway, you can't technically add a glow. If you can add a shadow, you can technically add a glow. It's just how it's applied. So let's say I select this one. All I need to do is pick a really light color, and we'll have a sort of glow. But glow tends to go, the glow options tends to glow. You can increase the size. Let me see. I'm going to increase. Normally with shadows you have to make some modifications to make it do what you want it to do, but I'm not going to do that. You can technically add a glow if you want. Just select shadow and then change some details, but I'm just going to leave it as it is and not, you know, give myself too much work to do. But anyway, that is it for our 3D pie chart. We can now move on to a different one. Let's create a new sheet. So I'm going to add a new sheet, and I'm going to insert a pivot table, and I'm going to reference table 1. Next, what I'm going to do is use month. So I'm just going to grab month. I'm going to use rows, and then I'm going to grab, let's use order ID. We're going to use a count. So I'll grab order ID, and it's showing some. Order ID is just like the registration number. It doesn't need to be a sum. So what I'm going to do is select this, and then I'm going to select value field settings. It's going to be a count, and I'm going to click on OK, and it's going to be a count of the number of orders by month. So I'm going to just select this, insert, and we are going to go to recommended charts, go over to pie, and we are going to use this option. Now you can see in this one we have a lot of options, and maybe that feels like it's too much values to use. Let me see if we use the 3D again. It feels like too much. You can use this option pi of pi, and I'm going to click on OK. What pi of pi does is that it takes a section of the pie chart. This section that I want to hover over it, and I want to show you what it's saying. It's just calling this section total. What total is that it has taken part of that pie chart. These 4 items is what makes up the total. So it's going to add it as part of the pie, but also separate it. It will make more sense when we add data labels to it, so you know that, okay, this is what is going on here. So I'm going to just right click, hide all fill buttons on charts, and I'm going to make this orders by month. And I can just copy this and use it as the sheet name. I'm going to paste. Click on OK. Now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add data labels, and then for data labels I'm going to select more options, and we are going to use just percentage, and we are going to use category name, and I'm going to remove the value. So we have just the month and then the percentage. Now I think let's make some colors, we can make some changes. We really can't see anything here. Let me select the chart area, go over to design, change colors, and I want to change the colors to a different set of colors, which is, I'm going to use this one. So select this. I'm going to select this call out values. I'm going to go to home, and then I'm going to change the color of the text to white. Let me increase the width and height so that these items will fit better, and we don't need this since we're already using call out values. So here you can see this entire 33%, this is what makes up that 33%. So Excel is labeling it as order, and this order is made up of September, October, November, and December. Let's now modify this pies, or the pie of pi. So I'm going to, let's come over to fill. Now all of these have borders. What I'm going to do is select no line. I don't want the lines between the borders. Let's leave it like this. Next, we can also, just like you can do with other charts, you can modify the chart area. There's no need for me to go through all of that. You can just try it, and since this is a line, we can also modify it as a line too. Let's say we want to change the color of the line to something much darker. Let's say something like this. We can change it, and we can change the line type to, let's say, this one, and we'll have this. I'm going to select the pies, the 2 pies themselves, and let's come over here to series options, and we can select, so it's split by position, and we can increase how much of this pie is taken to make this larger pie is used to make this smaller one. So every time I increase it, you're going to have more of the, so it eventually just defeats the purpose. I'm going to reduce it. It was 4 initially, so I'm going to leave it at 5, and we can actually increase the pie explosion. I'm just going to return it back to the default. I just wanted to demonstrate, so I'm not going to do that. We also have gap width, and then you can reduce the proportion of this secondary pie to the other one. So if we do like this, it's going to get smaller while the other one gets larger. I think it was 75%. I'm going to reduce it. I'm going to return it back to 75%. But anyway, that is the pie of pie chart. Just in case one pie won't be enough and you want to split it into 2, this is how you can do it. Let's move on to the next one. I'm going to create a new sheet, and I'm going to insert a pivot table, and this is going to be table 1. I'm going to grab, let's use state this time. I'm going to grab state and add that to rows, and I'm going to grab revenue and add revenue to values. I'm going to select all of this, and I'm going to change the format to currency, to dollars specifically. Now let's go over to insert, recommended charts, and I'm going to insert a pie chart. We are going to use a bar of pi. So it's essentially the same, something similar to the pie of pi, but this time you have this sort of mini bar chart if you want. I'm just going to insert that, and yeah, this is what it looks like by default. We didn't look at the default designs for this one. Let's see what it looks like. So we have, I could just hover. You could go through it one by one, pick a design that works for you and change it. Let's go back to Power of Pi. Let me hide all field buttons on charts, and I'm going to let me change the title first before I move on to something else. This is monthly. Oh no, not monthly. Revenue by states. I'm also going to select it and paste so we can change the title of our sheet, sorry. So let's hover and see the default design. So I can just hover and we can see the default options, and I'm going to just go through them. If there's any design you like, you can use any of them, but I'm not going to use that. But I want to maybe pick a different color scheme. So let me pick something else. Let me use this one instead. So I'll select that. I'm going to select this. I'm not going to change the field. What I will remove is this border. So once again, we can let's use data labels, and I'm going to select label options, more options. Let me remove the legend, select the legend and just delete. I'm going to select here, come over to series label options. We are going to use series name, category name, sorry. And yeah, this is what we have. So it's a bit crowded. I can move things around to help things fit better like this. So this is what we have. So this is a pie or bar chart. It's a little bit difficult. Maybe I could, let me see, inside and no, outside and best fits. Let me just use best fits, although this New York option isn't looking really nice to me. Anyway, this is the bar of pi, similar to the pie of pi chart, where if there are too many items in the pie, you can actually move it. So just like we did with the pie of pi, I can increase how many items we have here. So the more I increase it, the more items will move over to the bar. But I'm just going to leave it and return it back to default. So if you want to make any modifications to it, you can just play around with it and see what you can modify in this chart. Well, anyway, that's enough for this one. We can move on to another one. I'm going to create a new sheet and I'm going to insert a pivot table, table 1, and I'm going to create my pivot table. Let's use shipping type. Where is it? Shipping type is going to go to rows, and we are going to use costs for value, so total cost. I'm not going to change the data type or the format of our numbers. I'm just going to go over to insert, recommended charts, pie charts, and then we are going to use the donut charts. Click on OK. And there we go. We're not going to change this one. I just want to show you what a classic donut chart looks like. I'm going to right click, hide all field buttons on charts, select this, and this is going to be cost by shipping type. I'm going to select the title of this chart, and then I'm going to change the title of our sheet. Anyway, that is it for the classic donut chart. We can look at some of the default designs. So I'm going to select design, and we can just go over it, and you can select any one you want to. So if there's anyone that appeals to you, you can change it to that. Well, I'm just going to leave it here so that you're going to have a copy of the default. Let's now move on to another donut chart. This one we're actually going to modify. Create a new sheet, go over to any cell, and I'm going to insert pivot table, and I'm going to reference table 1 again, and we are going to use city this time. Add that to rows, and we are going to use profits. and add that to value. I'm not going to change the data type, the format of our numbers, because we're not going to use it, but for best practices you can. I'm going to insert recommended charts, pie charts, and I'm going to use a donut chart, and I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to right click, hide all fill buttons on charts. I'm going to select the chart title, and this is going to be profit by city. I'm also going to just select this, copy it, and then use it to rename my sheet. So let's make some changes to this chart. I'm going to come over to format shape, or you could right click and then select the format shape option. And let's just go around, let's play around with some of the settings and see what we can do with it. So most effects you can add to the charts, the donut charts and pie charts we have looked at earlier, you can actually add it to this one. So I'll just create a very kind of interesting design with what I have. I'm going to select this legend and I'm going to delete it. Next, I'm going to select data labels, and we can select more options, and I'm going to come over to label options again, and I'm going to use, is it category, or I'm going to use category name, remove the value, and we are going to use only the percentage. So you can see now that these values are kind of just hanging off to the side because the donut isn't big enough to accommodate them. No worries, let's select the donut itself. We can come over to what I didn't select the donut. What I selected was the chart area, not the donut. I'm going to select the donut this time. We're going to leave the border as it is. Let's say we come over to this option, series options, and here we can change the angle of the first slice. So when we do this, the donut is going to rotate, and I'm just going to return it back to the default, which is 0 degrees. For pie explosion, we can actually do this, and the more we do that, we can see more explosion. So there will be gaps in between each slice of our donut. And for the donut hole size, let's say we increase it to 90%, and we have these tiny slivers, but we can actually increase this so that you can have something like this. Let me see. Okay, it's currently at 50%. That's kind of all I need to do now is just increase the size of the chart. Let's see, maybe I could even increase it more, so that I'm just going to reduce it rather. Let me see, 45 looks much better. So we should have something that looks like this. Let me see, what else can I do with this? I'm going to select the data labels or the text itself. I like to modify text with this home tab. Let me say I can make the text a bit smaller, make it 8, and of course they are actually quite difficult to see, so I'm going to make the color of the text white. I still have some of this hanging out of the chart, so I can either increase the donut size, or let me reduce the size of the text to 7. Let's see what happens. Okay, 7 worked out fine. I'm going to just make it bold, just like that. Let's go back to the slices. I'm going to come over to shadow effects, but I'm going to use one of these, and I'm going to select this option here. So if I click on this, we're going to have this effect where it feels like the slices are indented into the background of our chart area, just like this. Let's format this area. I'm going to come over to format shape effects. Let's use a 3D effect, something we've used before, this one, divot. I'm going to click on that, and we are going to have this interesting looking donut chart. You know what, let's even add a glue to glue effect to it. So I'm going to select glue, and I'm going to pick this neon green color. So we have this. So I just no reason, I just picked this random combination of effects, so that instead of creating multiple of this one, create another one just to add some effects, I'll just add random effects so you can see how you can modify it. Anyway, that is it for this tutorial. The more you create more charts like this, or the more you practice, you'll be able to discover different formatting options you have. As long as you can plot or create the donut chart itself, it's just about figuring out what different functions or what different options would do. And when you're designing a dashboard, that will take you a long way. If you want to watch the other videos in this series where I create the other different types of charts in Excel, you can either check out the description box below for the course playlists link or the links to the individual videos, or you could click on the playlist on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe, and you can also give your suggestions in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.